My name is Celeste Monroe, and if there's one thing I've learned in my marriage, it's this. You don't just marry the man, you marry the mother who raised him. And in my case, his mother decided from day one that I was a mistake. I met Evan during my second year of grad school at Columbia. He was finishing law school, all sharp edges and soft eyes, the kind of man who opened doors and asked deep questions and actually listened to the answers. We fell into each other easily. Late-night coffee runs, Sunday morning bagels, quiet study sessions that turned into movie marathons. He was calm, funny, kind, and unlike anyone I'd ever dated. The first time he brought up meeting his family, I was excited. His mom, Eleanor Monroe, lived in Westchester, widowed young, active in her church. According to Evan, she was protective, but sweet once you got past the layers. I didn't know then that her layers were concrete walls. We drove up to her house in late November. I wore my best cream sweater and a smile I had rehearsed in the mirror. The house was beautiful, brick, ivy-covered, old money without being showy. Eleanor greeted me with a hug that barely touched my shoulders. She looked me over once, twice, and said, "You're not what I pictured." I laughed awkwardly. "I hope that's not a bad thing." She smiled thinly. "Time will tell." That was her version of a welcome. The rest of the weekend was polite torture. She made passive comments about how young women these days don't really cook anymore, and how Evan always liked a certain type. She asked about my family, then blinked when I said I was raised by a single dad who worked construction. "Blue collar," she murmured. "How grounded." Evan tried to steer the conversation. He tried to defend me without igniting more awkwardness, but I could feel it. She didn't just dislike me, she resented me. I didn't fit the vision she had for her only son. After that weekend, I told Evan I wasn't sure I could go through it again. He kissed my forehead. "She'll come around, just give her time." I did. 3 years of it. 3 years of Sunday dinners where she corrected my grammar, of family holidays where she'd bring up Evan's ex, lovely Sophia, just loud enough for me to hear. 3 years of smiling through backhanded compliments and subtle digs. "She's just old-fashioned," Evan would say. "It's not personal." But it was personal. Every glance, every whisper, every time she took something from my hand and rearranged it. She didn't want me as her daughter-in-law. She wanted someone else, someone safer, someone who came from the right family, with the right polish and the right pedigree. But she didn't get to choose. Evan chose me, and I thought that would be enough. We got married in spring, a small ceremony in Central Park. Evan looked at me like I hung the moon. Eleanor sat in the front row, stone-faced. She wore navy, not the mother of the groom beige she'd bought. "I look too washed out in that other dress," she'd said. "Besides, navy is more dignified." She didn't smile in a single photo, didn't toast, didn't dance, just sat, arms folded, like she was witnessing a tragedy in real time. After the wedding, things got worse. We'd barely moved into our Brooklyn apartment when she started showing up unannounced. I was just in the area. Brought some soup for Evan. Thought I'd help decorate. One day, she let herself in using a spare key Evan had given her in college. She rearranged our kitchen, literally, moved the plates, reorganized the spices, replaced my mugs with a set of hers. I walked in and found her labeling containers. "Oh," she said, "I just thought this might feel more like home." Evan always liked things a certain way. I called Evan. "Babe," he said. She was trying to help. That night, I removed every label and put my mugs back. The turning point came a year later. We were trying for a baby. We hadn't told anyone, not even friends. It was private, tender, still uncertain. I miscarried at 6 weeks. It was quiet and awful and something I wasn't ready to talk about. But somehow, Eleanor found out. She called me at work. "I heard the news," she said, voice cool. "I'm sorry, though I wish I could say I'm surprised." You always seemed a bit too delicate for motherhood." I dropped the phone, literally dropped it. Evan found me in the bathroom at work, sobbing, unable to speak. When he called her, she denied it, said she was only trying to offer comfort, said I was emotional, said I'd always had a flair for drama. That was the first time Evan truly saw it, and to his credit, he finally pushed back. He told her she wasn't welcome at our apartment until she apologized. She didn't. Instead, she called his aunt, his cousins, even friends of the family. Said I was tearing them apart, said I had poisoned him against her, said I was unstable. I became the villain in her carefully curated world, the girl who ruined everything. That summer, she hosted a family brunch in Westchester. We weren't invited, but her cousin Frances, who always liked me, sent me a photo. The table was set with gold chargers and champagne flutes, and in the center of the table was a framed photo of Evan with Sophia, his ex. "Was this from the wedding slideshow?" Frances asked in the text. Weird choice. My hands trembled. This was more than passive aggression. This was a quiet erasure, a message to her world that I didn't belong. Then, one rainy afternoon, everything changed. A letter arrived, not addressed to me, not to Evan, to Eleanor, but it was delivered to our apartment by mistake. She had forgotten to update her billing address for a private storage unit service in the city. Evan glanced at it, confused. I didn't know she had a storage unit. "Maybe it's old," I said, but the payment had been made last week. Curiosity gnawed at me, so I looked it up. Unit 1732, Upper West Side, Eleanor Monroe. I didn't tell Evan what I was thinking. Not yet. The next morning, I took a cab to the facility and asked to be shown the unit. I brought Eleanor's mail as proof and said I was her daughter-in-law running an errand. The clerk hesitated and then shrugged. Unit 1732 was small, clean, neatly stacked. Inside were a few boxes, all labeled with thick black marker. Sophia, engagement. Sophia, wedding plans. Evan, letters, records, Monroe Trust. At first, I couldn't breathe. I opened the box marked engagement. Inside were drafts of speeches, not from Evan, from Eleanor. One read, "When Sophia joins our family, I know she'll bring elegance, grace, and strength." Another box held menus, fabric swatches, handwritten seating charts, all dated 2 years before Evan and I had even met. But Evan had never proposed to Sophia. He told me that himself. Confused, I pulled out the letters in the Evan box. Most were printed emails, all from Eleanor to Sophia, begging her not to give up, telling her Evan would come around, that I was a phase, that we didn't matter. The most recent one, 3 months ago. "You're still the daughter I wish I had. It's not too late." My head spun. She hadn't just resented me. She had actively tried to replace me, and she had never stopped. I snapped photos of the letters, took a short video for proof. Then I returned the box exactly as I found it. That night, I sat Evan down and told him everything. I showed him the pictures, watched his face change from confusion to horror. "She's been talking to Sophia?" I nodded. "She kept everything," I whispered. "She planned your wedding years ago." His face went pale. "But I never proposed. I never even talked about it." "I know," I said. "But she was planning it anyway. She never let her go. And she never let us begin." Evan sat in silence. Then he said, "We're going to confront her. Together." I didn't know what the confrontation would bring, but I knew one thing. The villain in her story was never me. It was always the woman who couldn't let go. And I was done letting her rewrite my story. I could feel Evan's grip tighten around my hand as we pulled into the Monroe driveway. It was a Saturday afternoon, Eleanor's usual day for errands and solitude. She always insisted on quiet Saturdays. I always assumed it was a quirk. Now I wondered what else I had missed. Evan didn't say much during the drive. His jaw was set, his silence unusually hard. He wasn't just upset, he was gutted. The betrayal didn't come from some distant corner of his life. It came from the woman who raised him, and now he had to face her. So did I. Eleanor opened the door in a white cashmere sweater and pearl earrings like nothing was wrong. "Evan, Celeste," she said, eyebrows lifting. "What a surprise." "We need to talk," Evan said. She opened the door wider, stepping aside. We sat in the same formal living room where she'd once served me tea on a silver tray, like I was a visitor she hoped would leave quickly. This time I wasn't playing nice. Evan got straight to the point. "Why do you have a storage unit full of wedding plans for me and Sophia?" The shift in her face was subtle but clear. Her fingers froze mid-motion as she reached for a coaster. She didn't deny it. "I was organizing old things," she said calmly. "Just some memories, nothing serious." "Correspondence from 3 months ago isn't exactly memory lane," I said quietly. She glanced at me, her mask cracking. "You shouldn't have gone through my things." "You shouldn't have tried to replace my wife," Evan shot back. Silence. "You've been feeding Sophia this fantasy that we'd get back together. You planned an entire future without me. Do you realize how insane that is?" "I was trying to protect you." Evan's voice cracked. "From what?" "From her," Eleanor shouted, turning to me. "From a girl with no background, no roots, no pedigree. You think marriage is about love and daydreams? It's about compatibility, sustainability. Sophia would have given you stability." "Stability," I said, my voice rising. "You mean control." She turned on me fully. "You don't belong in this family. You've turned him into someone I don't recognize. You've made him soft." Evan stood. "No, Mom. Celeste made me happy. You made me doubt her. You lied, you manipulated, and you kept feeding an old relationship to a woman who still thinks I'm coming back. She was going to be your wife." "She never was," he snapped. "And this obsession of yours? It's not about Sophia, it's about you." She blinked. "You can't stand the idea of being alone, so you clung to her. Because she let you stay in control. But I'm not yours anymore." That landed like a stone between them. She sat down slowly, her hands trembling. "I gave everything to this family," she whispered. "No," I said, "you gave everything to the idea of it." She looked at me, not with rage this time, but with something softer, something sadder, maybe regret, maybe not. We left without another word. No dramatic exit, no slamming doors, just quiet. When we got in the car, Evan exhaled deeply. "She's sick," he said finally. "Not physically, but emotionally. She's built a world that only she understands, and now it's falling apart." "I know," I said, "but that doesn't excuse what she's done." "No," he agreed, "but it explains it." The aftermath wasn't loud. It was eerily calm. Eleanor stopped calling, stopped showing up. We heard from a family friend that she'd gone to stay in Connecticut with a cousin for a wellness reset. I suspected it was more like damage control. She never publicly admitted what she did, but the Monroe circle quietly learned the truth. Sophia removed Eleanor from her social media a few weeks later. I didn't feel triumphant, just free. Evan and I started therapy, not because we were falling apart, but because we knew what trauma like this could leave behind. He carried guilt for not seeing it sooner. I carried scars from trying to win over a woman who never wanted me. One session, the therapist asked, "What are you most afraid of becoming?" I said, "Someone who fights so hard to prove they belong, they forget they already do." Evan said, "Someone who lets silence speak louder than truth." We were healing, together. That fall, I found out I was pregnant. We didn't announce it right away, not even to close friends. It felt sacred, a little secret just for us. When we finally shared the news, Eleanor sent a card. No letter, no grand apology, just a simple cream envelope with soft handwriting. "Congratulations. I hope you raise her differently than I raised you. E. It was the closest thing to an apology she could give, and maybe that was enough. Our daughter, June, was born on a rainy Thursday. She had Evan's eyes and my hair and the kind of laugh that makes strangers smile in elevators. We didn't invite Eleanor to the hospital. She sent flowers, nothing extravagant, just daffodils in a glass vase. No note, just a tiny card that read, "To a new beginning." People say the hardest part of marriage is merging two lives. But the truth? It's the ghosts, the expectations, the unspoken rules, the family portraits that hang with spaces already carved for people you haven't even met. Eleanor painted me as a villain because she didn't know how to let go of the fantasy she'd built. But here's the thing about truth. It always makes its way out. Sometimes in courtrooms, sometimes in closets, and sometimes in storage units on the Upper West Side. And me? I'm not the villain in anyone's story anymore. I'm the author of my own. Thank you for listening to The Story Voice. If this story moved you, inspired you, or made you think, don't keep it to yourself. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. And if you've got a story you think the world needs to hear, drop it in the comments. I might just tell it next. Until then, keep listening and keep feeling.